Good evening, everyone. So much for joining us tonight. This is the second of many Leading Lexingtonian lectures, a new initiative that we have here at Lexington History Museums. So on behalf of Lexington History Museums, I'd like to thank you. My name is Sarah McKenna. I'm the programs manager here. For anyone who hasn't been in this new building before, thank you for joining us. We just recently opened the depot as our new museum of all of Lexington's history, not just the American Revolution. If you need a restroom, they are in the back to your left. There's also a water fountain back there. If anyone has not seen your name on the cast list at the front of the building, definitely check that out. Thank you to Becky for your information and to Nym. Before we get to the meat of our program, I would like to briefly introduce our curator, Jessie Hinton, who helped to put this together. She is one of the team that chooses our leading Lexingtonians, who are fantastic change makers in town through time.
I want to thank everyone for being here. I just want to say a few words and then we'll get to the main topic tonight, which is Nym. So, across generations, change makers have made their mark on Lexington, building community, working for social change, pioneering in their fields, and pursuing creative passions. Our Leading Lexingtonian series highlights these individuals whose contributions to Lexington on the map, both historic place and living in involved community. Their stories are shared here at the Lexington Depot Museum through our rotating exhibit, which is the Leading Lexingtonians. Today, we are honored to recognize our Leading Lexingtonian for the Creative Community exhibition, Nym Cooke. Cooke is a music historian, choral conductor, a former film and theater director. One of his earliest creative projects made a lasting impression on the Lexington community. In the summer of 1967, as a high school senior, he helped produce and co-direct Doublecross, a 38-minute silent mobster movie. Working with 57 fellow Lexington High School students, Cooke helped conceptualize, fund, produce, film, and edit the project. The film was driven almost entirely by student collaboration and only one adult help, with scenes filmed throughout Lexington. When Doublecross premiered in the high school auditorium, it played to 2 sold-out audiences, and you can see one of the posters at the front. Most importantly, it created a shared experience that has lasted decades. Today, participants still gather for reunions, reflecting on what they worked together. Throughout his career, Cooke has remained committed to the power of performance to bring people together. He often describes a project like Doublecross as creating little worlds, spaces where collaboration and shared purpose temporarily set everything else aside. That spirit reflects what we celebrate here in Leading Lexingtonians, and individuals whose creativity, leadership, and community impact help shape Lexington's identity across time. So without further ado, we're pleased to welcome Nym and the members of the Doublecross community for today's discussion and celebration.
This is a half an hour. I hope almost exactly. And it starts with a frame. His parents drove him to his dorm early in September 1968. It was called Pennypacker Hall. It was located in Harvard Street, outside Harvard, New York, but just around the corner from the freshman unit where he had his meals. One of his roommates was his best friend from high school, but this person's increasing use of marijuana would gradually separate as he became more and more isolated. He was terrified of his sexuality, and smoking grass was his escape. Little from that freshman year remains in his memory, perhaps unsurprisingly. At some point in the fall, he discovered the listening labs on the top floor of Radcliffe's Hillis Library, which had opened 2 years earlier. He'd spend hours up there, listening to Brahms' German Requiem over and over. He remembers looking out at a cold November sunset once as he listened. He kept to himself, made few new friends. All this time, the United States war in Vietnam was intensifying. On April 9, and I'm going to quote here, on April 9, 1969, hundreds of Harvard students, led by Students for a Democratic Society, SDS, occupied University Hall to protest the Vietnam War, ROTC's campus presence, that's Reserve Officer Training Corps, and university expansion. The 18-hour takeover ended early on April 10, when President Nathan Pusey ordered 400 police to forcibly remove protesters, resulting in over 100 results and dozens of injuries. That's AI's overview. This freshman didn't participate in the occupation, but he was very much in sympathy with the protesters and collected many of their stencils, posters, and flyers. This was before, but not long before, the Woodstock Festival brought the 60s counterculture zeitgeist to a culmination. Before the disastrous Altamont Festival that did much to dismantle that zeitgeist. Before Nixon's covert bombing of Cambodia. Before the Kent State shootings. And before this undergraduate read Jerry Rubin's Do It, dropped out of Harvard, angrily left his parents in Stratford Road House in Lexington, and hitchhiked to California. It would take him 40 rides to cross the country. And he got thrown in jail in Laramie, Wyoming for thumbing a ride on a highway access road. Back to 1969. His first college year was drawing to a close. He can't remember if he felt lonely. Probably his constant companion, weed, helped suppress that feeling. In early May, he handed in a paper titled The Filming of Doublecross, summer 1967. Long shot, medium shot, close up. As his final essay for Carter Wilson's Expository Writing 101 course, Exposition and Autobiography. The paper starts with the long shot, and I quote, Doublecross, 16 millimeters, 38 minutes, black and white, silent with honky-tonk piano soundtrack on silver tape. Conceived, written, directed, produced, filmed, acted, staffed, edited, financed, publicized entirely by 57 high school students. Ages 13 to 18 in Lexington, Mass. Conception, planning, writing, March to June 1967. Filming, July to October 1967. Editing, publicity, October 1967 to January 1968. First screen, January 19 and 20, 1968. Admission $1. Shown to capacity audience, totaling over 2,000. Cost of film, $1,100. Net gain, $900. That's the launch. So recent in May 1969, and at the same time, so remote. When I was asked by Jesse Hilton to talk about the Doublecross project, I started to rummage around in my ever more porous septuagenarian brain and wasn't satisfied with what I found. Scattered images, drawn but distant feelings, half-remembered moments. These bits and pieces didn't add up to any kind of a compelling narrative or insightful synthesis. Then I dug out my Harvard freshman year Doublecross paper, which I always knew was there, but didn't set much stock on. Now, revisiting it after decades, I was surprised by its extent, over 20 pages single-spaced, and also by how detailed and for me, at least, how evocative it was. So it became my major source for this topic. An account that's 57 years closer to that summer of 1967 that I am now. It has a certain thorough. I think I took care of it. I'm going to quote it at length, figuring that 18-year-old William's voice has a lot more authority, if perhaps less subtlety, than his 76-year-old voice. A word of caution before we get underway. The name of the course was Exposition and Autobiography. So there's a lot of me in this paper. A focus on self, which came naturally to me at that point. In fact, it's only in recent years, as Doublecross veterans have reunited both live and online, that I fully realized what a collaborative venture this was. In selecting excerpts from my college paper, I'll try to minimize the me, but sometimes it will be unavoidable. Also, you'll see that my writing style in 1969 was hyperbolic. Heck, my personal style was hyperbolic. I've left all the hyperbole in. In fact, with the exceptions of A few change, I think just one change in individual word. What you're going to hear is exactly what I wrote. Here is the paper's medium shot. As Doublecross's co-scriptwriter, co-director, producer, visual accountant, and co-editor, publicist director, I witnessed the close range, the entirety of its 10-month metamorphosis from nebulous idea to edited film. Doublecross evolved slowly with remarkable sureness for a film conceived and produced entirely by inexperienced, unfinanced teenagers. David Grayson and I controlled the project throughout. I more ostentatiously than he. We proposed music, both as a team and separately. We had written words of 37 songs and some of the music for a musical, never completed, entitled The Neighbors. We had organized and participated in many programs of music and drama, both at our school and in the community. We had even made a short experimental film. Now we wanted to spend the summer working with film, and in my case, people, on an expanded scale. In March of our junior year of high school, Dave and I agreed on the skeleton of the plot. It lacked a title and an ending, but we were confident these would be forthcoming. The project lay dormant until summer vacation was almost upon us. At that time, we advertised for cast and crew over our school's public address system, and later in the town's weekly rag, the Lexingtonian. Lexington is still a small town at heart, and there is very little news. Our plea for personnel made the Minuteman's front page. Our initial organizational meeting was held, and some 40 enthusiastic teenagers attended. I read what existed as a plot. We established plot collecting and script writing committees. The date for our next meeting was set, and everyone went home. The script writing committee worked hard, several hours a day for a week. The results were an ending, a semi-detailed shooting script, and a title, This Last After Much Agony. There followed a period of relative inactivity. We had no idea where and how to begin shooting. We had few locations, little money, and negligible experience in filmmaking. In their stead were plenty of enthusiasm and youthful energy, a surplus of ideas, and a multitude of people whose ranks were slowly swelling. On July 13th, we started to film. Sometime in early October, we shot our last scene. We worked mostly at night, for many of us had jobs during the day. Our locations included a barn, the main street of Lexington, a field behind my house, a graveyard, and the Gloucester coast. Dave, I, and two others spent the 3 months after filming was completed, editing a considerable amount of exposed celluloid that had accumulated. It was an intensive and rather unpleasant task. In general, we worked on weekends and during holidays. Over Thanksgiving, we spent 3 days cloistered in a summer home in Boston, totally isolated from the rest of humanity, working day and night in an attempt to finish the ghastly job. We spent the last 36 hours of our stay awake, if barely so, and actually did succeed in finishing a rough cut, the first draft of the completed film. 6 weeks later, the edited negative was ready for printing. Meanwhile, I had launched a massive and fantastically successful publicity campaign. News of our impending world premiere, WP, appeared on the front pages of the Boston Globe, and of course, the Lexington Minuteman, as well as on the second page of the Boston Herald. All three newspapers printed several photographs each with their articles. Doublecross's editors appeared on television. A short segment of the film was also shown on the air. Several radio stations broadcast the sensational story. Posters were everywhere. The final print of the negative was made on the day of the premiere. The final print of the negative was made on the day of the premiere. One of my father's former music students, a semi-professional honky-tonk pianist, that's what I thought of him then, improvised a brilliant soundtrack, finishing barely 2 hours before curtain time. Now, not in my paper, this is something I had to add. Ernest Stires, the gifted composer who married jazz and classical music in his works, recorded the soundtrack right there in the LHS auditorium, watching the movies play, and then 2 hours later it was shown. Then all was ready. Doublecross, the fruit of 10 months of planning and hard work, was screened in all its final glory to 2 massive and wildly enthusiastic audiences in the Lexington High School auditorium on the 19th and 20th of January 1968. This immediate shot account of the movie's gestation is followed by an intro, where I attempt to capture the outside of time feeling that summer held. The first scene of Doublecross is a bank robbery. After unsuccessfully negotiating with several banks, all of whom feared that our appearance in our film would be miserable publicity, we ended up filming the scene in the basement of a church. The scene opens with what is known in film jargon as a dolly shot. The term dolly is especially appropriate in this case, as the camera and cameraman were precariously mounted on a double carrot. On a double carrot. The dolly shot. And the whole bizarre assembly was pushed slowly forward by the director to achieve the effect of a smooth zoom. Surprisingly, it worked. What the shot shows is a seated with his back to the camera, distance sprilling away his legends. On the wall above his desk is an electric clock, which we had to unplug while filming the scene as we were desperately in need of electric outlets for our lights. The clock is stopped at 11:25. This absurdity is clearly visible from the beginning of the shot. Therefore, it is one of the first things one notices when watching the film. For me, this anomaly is more than just another example of our ridiculously low standard with respect to the credibility of the film's detail. It is symbolic, I feel, of more than the fantastic absurdity, which is such an integral part of Doublecross. I see the stop clock as representative of the magic timelessness of the entire summer in which we filmed. I remember that summer just as I lived it, not as a clear-cut succession of events, but as a free-flowing continuum of sensory impressions. Summer is always that way to me, a part of the year when time simply stops, when days and nights follow one after the other in complete anonymity. When the enriched flow of sensory stimuli conquers the conscious intellectual appreciation of events and change. That summer was particularly timeless, for I lived it from night to night, totally absorbed in the time-isolated experience of developing the two stories of the film and its film. I can very easily think of the entire summer in terms of simple sensory constants. A girl and a song, Becky, and coming back to me on surrealistic film. Which is what, hey, I'm so long. You missed the best part. Becky is here tonight and coming back to me on surrealistic film, which I played earlier. And Sarah, where are you? Sarah? When you play it again towards the end of the song, it'll be okay. Sure. Can you cue it up? A sound. Crickets at night, merging their million monotonic nocturnes in one pulsating heat. A feeling, the warm night air like a blanket wrapped loosely around me, penetrated only occasionally by a soft, cool breeze. A vision, the barn, lighted brightly at night, filled with teenagers, noise, and confusion. And you guys are going to relate. This is from a paper I wrote in the spring of 1969. So I figured I should quote it. It's easy. This is 57 years closer to the thing that I am. All right, so now we come out of the paper. Later in that somewhat jumbled interlude, I summarize our nightly modus operandi, then dive right into a list of examples demonstrating the movie's absurdity. This will lead us directly to the excerpt I want to show you. The movie's last 3+ minutes. Each shot, now back into the tape, each shot took from 15 minutes to half an hour to arrange and shoot. We could do as many as 8 on a single evening, but our average was probably closer to 5. Dave and I would confer on the details of camera, set, and keep position and movement. Then Dave, Alex, and Tom would position and angle the camera and lights, while I positioned the actors on the set and instructed or demonstrated what they should do. We rarely rehearsed about the camera line, so we decided it would be faster if less economical to film 2 takes or more of each shot whenever necessary. I would check the camera's view, Dave would review the cast's positions and projected movements, and he would make the necessary changes to the parameters. A light reader reading would be taken and adjustments made. The script girl would obtain and note down the technical information for the shot. Number, location, brief description, f-stop, type of lens used, camera subject distance, camera height, and end. Then all extraneous matter would be removed from the camera's field position. The actors would take their places. Silence would be called for. Silence! This is a silent film! Last instructions. Last instructions is ready to be given, and the camera would roll. Almost always something would go wrong. The camera would run out of film, the actor would misbehave, Tom would have forgotten to wind the camera movement would be jittery. And everyone would have to get into place all over again for another take. Despite our planning, despite all our planning, the madness, if not the chaos, of filming easily managed to flavor every shot. The result is that Doublecross is a thoroughly absurd film. The primal absurd, in fact, that's probably what it will be recognized as. This brilliant absurdity. The primal absurdity, of course, is that the film's hardened gangsters are extraordinarily youthful. Some are as young as 13 and put There are many other strange things about the film. Chicago, 1929, is disturbingly suburban and quite modern in appearance. The sets all lack verisimilitude to varying, occasionally alarming degrees. Big Otto, the boss of Gang 1, pulls a gun out of his bathwater to shoot Doublecross. One shot shows two carloads of gangsters in a mad chase, Gang 1 and hot pursuit of Gang 2. The problem is that both the pursuers and the pursued are shooting forward. Gang 1 and Gang 2 and Gang 2 guns never flare or smoke. Yet cigarette smoke, artificially produced in one scene, is so thick and billows about so energetically that it succeeds in blowing away some of the play money legally counted out by Boss Sweeney. A tiny printing press turns out ridiculously large amounts of counterfeit cash, as many as 10 rolls at a time. Whee! It's a great moment. I think you'll see it. We'll show that. A gangster stops on the sidewalk to lock the door of the bag he's just robbed. And as a result is done to death by a fancy props. Gravestones nod gently in the wind. Cardboard gravestones. Bullets are fired in impossibly large numbers and almost never hit their mark. Gangsters consume enormous quantities of liquor and never quite pass out. The membership of both gangs changes constantly, and many gangsters appear in both. One gang always wears sunglasses. His boss even wears them along with his perennial hat and cigar in his bath. If the gangsters aren't looking at the camera, they're giggling during a deadly gun battle. Flags appear up and down the street, and people will see it disappear just as suddenly. All the Simpsons running for life. No, straight from there.
Maybe later.
Huh?
Maybe later.
Maybe later it could be. No. All this absurdity is justified, however, the film itself was completely absurd. This occurs during the chase scene. The dog is run over by the speedy gangsters. His young master rushes to the body and weeping, cradles the twisted form of what is obviously a dummy in his arms. This leads to a berserk montage of crazy images whose motif is chase, but which otherwise bears only scant resemblance to the body film. Dummy dog to head. My paper then does some scene setting preparatory to a detailed account of one night's filming. That's the paper's close-up. Here's the scene setting. I remember most vividly the strange light of those summer evenings. We would gather for filming midway between sunset and nightfall. The shadows of the evening had purged the earth of its daytime fire. And often it was quite cool. In a similar way, the harsh glare of the summer day had been replaced by a colorless, deceptive half-light that softly embraced everything in sight with a gentle veil. These sensations combined in my memory to produce a feeling of graceful magic. A feeling so dominant and all-pervasive that it takes precedent in my memory over the actual events of that time. The barn was lent us by a generous neighbor. It was a godsend as it provided us with a location in which to film 4 of our 11 scenes. It is a huge, decaying, box-like structure, a perfect example of that classic type found in Italy. A sliding door leads to an enormous high-ceilinged main room. Another sliding door leads to the back room, much smaller and low-ceiling, once the stables. Still another sliding door leads outside from the back of the small room. The top floor of the barn is out of bounds. This floor is too flimsy to hold the weight of 5 teenagers, let alone that of 50. The front room of the barn, against one wall of which was stacked an enormous amount of scenery belonging to the Opera Company of Boston, was christened the headquarters of Big Otto's first gang. The back room, separated from the front only by the one sliding door, was to become the headquarters of Mas Sweeney's second gang, and we immediately set about effecting this metamorphosis. It was quickly accomplished. The room itself, with its low ceiling, its 2 stables with their swinging doors, its gently sloping floor of rough hewn boards, its 2 sliding doors, and its general atmosphere of age and dust and decay, needed little else. We added a large low table made of a board of plywood set of wooden crates, some chairs, a card table, and of course the standard gangster film props. Great numbers of liquor bottles filled with Kool-Aid or water, packs of cards, and guns, most of them plastic. In this limited space, getting anything done in the way of filming was proved an almost impossible task. The greatest single problem confronting those who prefer filming on location to working with sets is simply that of lack of space. We would quickly discover that because of this problem and many others ranging small and evening's hard work would produce very insubstantial results. If we were lucky, we might end up with as many as 8 minutes of exposed film, 3 of which might survive the editing process to become a part of the final film. Our lack of technical skill in handling the camera and lighting would make things worse, and the cramped and crowded conditions we were working in would be aggravated by a steady stream of bystanders and hangers-on, friends of the cast and crew, neighbors of all ages, mysterious strangers, all ceaselessly circulating, getting in the way, both on and around the set. When we filmed in the barn, everyone would begin to arrive for filming between 7 and 7:30. The boys in wide-brimmed gangster hats, seedy-looking double-breasted sports jackets and baggy pants. The girls with brown paper bags containing their gun mall costumes, which in most cases consisted of revealing low-cut dresses, black fishnet tights, and high-heeled shoes. While I finished my dinner and discussed the evening shots for the day, some of the girls would be changing upstairs, and the boys would be raising general havoc outside. After a nervous dash upstairs to my room, to collect several pens and the various filming notebooks filled with lists of shots and miscellaneous memoranda, I would make my appearance outside, preferably unaccompanied. Backing away. Time forbids me, luckily, to include the 8-page blow-by-blow, almost script-like close-up, and it's probably just as well. I'll include just 2 more sections of the page. In the first, I attempt to capture the magic of those summer nights once again. It's only when I'm away from the set that I truly feel the excitement of filming, but I fully realize what an amazing phenomenon this whole thing is. We are arranging furniture, people with lights, for a difficult pop shot. One of the surrounding chaos, I hear a voice, "Nym, want it on the phone?" Both vexed and relieved by this interruption, I push my way through bodies, wires, boxes, and furniture, and burst out of the barn into the night. For a moment I stop, blinded by the sudden absence of glaring light. Then I'm running down the small hill to my house, gathering momentum for the final leap up the back porch stairs. Flushed and dripping with sweat, my shirt untucked, I run past my mother to the telephone. It's a distressed parent, DP. Tell the wife to come home immediately. Okay, I'll do that. Yes, no, I won't forget. Yes, fine. Yes, I'm sorry. We'll try not to work overtime today, I promise. Right, you can have my word. Yes, you can trust me. They should be open in 10 minutes. I'll get them a ride. No trouble. No worry. No. Yes, right. Nice to hear from you, Mrs. Lieutenant. We've got 2 fine sons. See you at the premiere. Good night. I dash past my mother again. Wow, she's mad. I better smile. Tuck in your shirt, she says. Then onto the lighted porch, down the stairs 3 at a time, out of the night. Swept forward. The barn, seen from a distance, is an enormous dark mass, pierced at regular intervals by squares of brilliant light. I stop, transfixed by the sight. The night air and the cricket song flows seductively, caressingly about. I'm both excited and it's wonderful. As I approach the barn, I'm increasingly aware of the tremendous energy, light, noise, even heat, which exudes from every window and door. Is that the right word? Anyway, that's what I wrote. In the front room, however, it's surprisingly quiet. The members of Gang 1, tired of watching Gang 2 being filmed and impatient for their turn, are sprawled about singly in their groups. Some are talking, others are playing cards, others are just waiting. When I entered, there's a general mumble of discontent. Man, we're tired of waiting. When can you film us? I glanced nervously toward the back room. I don't think we'll even get to that part. Well, I'm not sure, but I think we should be filming you next. I'll check. Just a minute. I hastily retreat, plunging into the confusion and safety of the back room. And now, if we can have the song once more. And I'll end with the paper's conclusion, which moves away from the movie's artificial cinematic gangster world to show just a bunch of teenagers relaxing on a summer night. Closing up for the night is quickly accomplished. The giant light bulbs are turned off, removed from their perches, and placed gently on the floor. Turn it up. The wire bringing electric power from the garage is disconnected from the real. I quickly collect and stack some passing cars. People are herded out, lights are turned off, and one by one, the three slide towards the last carload of gangsters and bundles leaves, something's very quiet. A group of six walks slowly down the drive to the house. Dave carries the controls of film we've completed tonight. I carry my notes, just like it's exceptional. The story of these six and the others wait like on the porch to test. It's still early, it's 30, and no one wants to disband. Hold a brief conference in the porch steps and decided to go to Becky's. It's a 15-minute walk to Becky's house. Becky and I walked together in silence. Behind us, Dave and the others were talking, laughing profusely. All thought of the film vanished from my mind, and extremely relaxed. I find myself breathing deeply of the cool air. It's a beautiful, clear night. The constellations are so sharply visible in the sky that it's almost educational, like a planet. Suddenly I'm aware of the quiet, calm, quiet female presence. I glance quickly at her. She seems as relaxed as I, perfectly content to walk in peaceful silence. For the first time, I realized that Becky was one of the very few persons. We sit around in Becky's lighted street porch, some on chairs, others on the floor. Becky brings out a tray laden with lemonade and cookies. Steve is singing and playing his guitar. So the rest of us are silent. It's still warm, and every door and window of Becky's large living house is wide open. Night air flows in and out unimpeded. The house breathes the night. Steve finishes his song and puts by his guitar. There's a portable record player. Becky puts on some realistic pillow and sits on the floor by my feet. I sip some lemonade and lean back contentedly in the chair. Steve and John are quietly talking somewhere behind me. Across the other tables are pictures and photographs of Life magazine. I think, wow, these things are really good. Becky taps me on the knee and wordlessly points to the screen. A kitten is stuck to the outside of the screen. About 3 feet up, clicking desperately, down the fragile claws on the written surface. As we watch, it utters a plaintive soprano squeak. Becky jumps up to open the screen door. The kitten drops. They reach the door at the same time. Once inside, the kitten makes a beeline for the kitchen. We laugh. Thanks. Tremendous. Boom! I'm having, I think, maybe 6 Doublecross veterans in the room. Could they stand just so you can see who they are? These people who are in. So I just think here we got handheld mics. I think we should do this. For those of us, including myself, for hearing challenge. If you have just any memories or thoughts, feelings you put.
Hello, I'm Steve, and my overwhelming memory is I was one of the young guys. I think I was 15 at the time. And one of the things that really struck me was how well us youngsters were treated by the older folks. Because that's not a tradition in high school. Usually the older folks look down on them. So this was, I felt I was part of the group, and I was one of the writers of the script, and I was always listened to. It was pretty magical. And the other thing that I'm sure everybody feels is after 59 years, we're still connected. We do these Zoom meetings a few times a year, and that far exceeds any kind of high school or college reunion time span. And whenever I get a chance to see you guys in real life, and it makes me very happy.
I work for lessons, and I love being back here. I was fortunate to fall in with a group of very talented, interested people, and one of them was Nym. And I know this is not supposed to be about you, Nym, but that whole summer was about you.
My ego made sure it would be.
You've grown up a lot. Doublecross was not the only project Nym drew me into. There were several. He would come up with an idea, enlist or cajole people into participating, and we would get together and do it. A musical performance, a play, a dramatic reading. I think I was 15 when he created Lexington Camerata and pulled me in. 4 instruments and 4 voices to perform the music of Monteverdi. I know this isn't supposed to be about him, but he had a streak of creative genius, along with an ability to recognize and appreciate other people's talents and nurture them. He knew how to delegate and could motivate a group of people to work together, albeit with a few glitches here and there. And Doublecross was his magnum opus. Only one of us has graduated from high school. It was a complex project with innumerable moving parts involving dozens of people, completed with only minimal peripheral assistance from anyone over the age of 18. What I remember feeling while participating in all of those projects was a certain unconscious sense of freedom. Freedom from the expectation of adults, and freedom to mess up and fix it ourselves. In the end, that sense of being able to create something and solve the problems associated with it stayed with me and became part of my DNA, along with incredible memories of that song.
Oh, yeah. Good name.
I'm John with my parents' farm, so I was the lucky person who got to open up. It's very young too. I got to work almost every night and just lay down, and I would try to stay out of the way and just watch.
How old were you?
I was 13, 14. So me and Tom were on. We were singing, so we always sang together. And one of the things we talked about the inclusivity. I always felt seen, and that was something that we grew up in the baby boom. There were so many of us, and to have individuals recognize individuals was something very special. And what you said about giving permission to fail, giving permission to try something, and then you fail. Like, it opened lots of doors for me, even though I couldn't sing. I started singing after high school and joined choirs. There are lots of things that I did that I did not do well. I just kept doing it. And one of the things that made me really sad is hearing about your struggles with sexuality, because we love you. And I think my best friend in high school didn't tell me he was gay until after he was the best man in the wedding. So just that not knowing and having somebody to hold that inside was, I feel that I'm glad we're beyond that, hopefully. So, but I really thank the time that we have, because it opened all these doors and it's still happening. So thank you very much.
My name is Douglas. I'm 76. So, I was kind of peripheral in this movie. I was one of the gangsters on the Marine Corps, one of the speeding cars. And I felt guilty when we talked about how great it was to go in the back room and find be by yourself, because I was one of the people that probably spent a lot of time just talking, flirting, being in the way. But there were a huge crowd of teenagers. And the other thing that I remember, we talked about the DP, the stress parents. Yeah, I was delegated at, like, I think 11:30 at night to drive somebody home whose DP's at home. And I drove really fast somewhere in the vicinity of Woburn and Manchester Street. On the way back, I got a speeding ticket, and I haven't had one since 1965. But anyway, so who else wants this? Yeah.
Three.
Is it on?
So I'm Becky of Nym's paper, and I've never heard that before. And I was very touched. And I was very young. I was 14. I think I turned 15 on that summer shoot, and it was truly magical for me. And also the fact that we had these warm summer nights, and we walked places, and there'd be cool breezes coming in, and the scent of the warm grass. I mean, it's all of the best things in this part of the world, I think. We also got along incredibly well. 57 teenagers doing something with no adult supervision. And I think we all participated. I think we gave $20 or $50 or something to buy film. It was, you know, people just do things out of the goodness of their heart. I remember we needed those cars, those old cars for the gangsters. And I started calling people. I don't know how I knew about them in Lincoln, and there was a whole group of them. And we got them to come and drive up and down Main Street and drive them.
You make the connection to those guys in the cars?
Yes, I got.
Thank you.
That I could do it, and then show up and we did. And I think that kind of thing, the confidence in being able to make things happen and be creative, and that's when we've talked about in some of our Zoom meetings in the last few years, that we've all felt like we really understood and were part of something creative, and that has continued to this day. And I just want to go back to the warm summer nights. They were just completely magical. And we would have walked to my parents' house, and there would have been fresh baked cookies and a kid. I mean, it sounds like it would have happened. Yes, yes. Thank you.
I'm Eric Christensen, and I was also just a random leader. In today's parlance, they say a random. But anyway, I was there, my younger brother was there too, we wore hats and hats. It's silly, but it was also the first summer that I had my driver's license. So I suddenly had that freedom. And what some of you have said, I think I didn't realize as much then, but when I look back, it never occurred to me that we were doing anything that might be wrong, or it didn't matter for me. We just did it, you know. And you guys took the lead, and we were there. And what you said about the lack of conflict, you're right. Now, when you think of, I think when my kids were teenagers, it was just a little conflict here and there, to state it clearly. But now it's, I look back, and it just gave us permission to be who we were. And I also see it as, the reunions have helped a lot, but it was one part of a long high school experience that we all had. A lot of us were in a lot of the same classes. So we hung around, and some of us did music or performance together. Nim and I and Dave played chamber music a few times. I mean, anyway, it was all just part of the overall experience, and it gave us, I think it gave us the self-confidence to be who we are. It was just part of the whole thing, and so thank you for facilitating or setting that up. I think to everybody, it was just, you know, the connection that I felt with people, like in some cases when we started this, people I haven't seen for 40 years. You know, and some of you, if it's our high school, we really know you in high school. But now we do. That's great. And to come back to Lexington, I would say one more little story is that I live out in Sudbury, and my usual route from Sudbury to Lexington is through the back roads of Lincoln. And when I was coming at about 6:30, the sun was filtering through the trees, and I drove on all those same roads. Right. That we did with the cars, and actually every time I drive through Lincoln, I think that. And that's been like 50 years. So again, thanks to everybody for sharing this wonderful experience. Yeah, if you go on Traveler Road, and you take one of those side roads, and they'll kind of wander off. And they all kind of the same. And you know, you notice, of course, the cars are different. The people are different. I just still remember doing it. Just, it was so great. I think of that every time I drive through that. So I always watch out for the speed trips. Somehow manage to never get it to the anyway. All right, you're next.
I'm very fascinated by to live in town. And it was a once in a lifetime experience. I came kind of late. Production was probably underway, and then we were like so young, and we were young gangsters, right? As a matter of fact, it was Lenny the Fist who invited me. Yeah, Lenny Pfister, who lives in California. We were just so young, and I just have to remember the scenes in the graveyard with the fluffy stone. It wasn't in the real Egypt at all in the cemetery. It was totally in the backyard. Anyways, Nym, I have to thank you wildly for this experience. It's like thanks so much. This lovely business of people factory is so lovely, but just like Catholics, but just another party. It's all the whole thing is a system. You've got some people who've got bigger egos and a lot of drive, and want to get things started. It takes so much else. The person who isn't here tonight, David Grayson, co-director. Dave probably is responsible for 85% of the shots. Really, so in a sense, it's so much Dave. So I want to deflect and spread out a little bit of this. But is someone else going to talk?
I just want to mention how good the acting was. there was Monty Python, there's a lot of things, the absurdity was really coming in, so I think it was much more cutting edge than it kind of was. That's all
It's good. It's good. Right. I think we're done.
Well, thank you, everybody. That was really amazing. I should probably speak on the reason why I picked Nym for this first round. We had a donation. I actually think Becky was it you that donated recently, 2 years ago? Yes. Okay. I knew you were familiar. And she came in with material about Doublecross, and I just started. I'm not from Lexington. I've been the curator here for 3.5 years. So when she brought in this collection, she's telling me about it. I was this gonna be online. And so I looked it up on YouTube, and I just thought, how cool is this project? All these kids, you know, you put your money together, you got together, and you created such an amazing project. And I kept thinking about how I grew up and the connections I made and the people I'm still in touch with. And then I started hearing you guys still have reunions, and Becky was, you know, I was just, poor Becky got a whole bunch of questions and enthusiasm from me. And then I learned I actually have more in our collection, and Nym actually donated to us. So we have the original film, and we have the posters. And I was just so impressed with the community that was built. And the fact that you all are still close, and you all were so different, but yet this project is what drove you guys together. And learning about that, how it inspired people's careers and their paths, that was what motivated me to not only feature Nym, but to feature all of you as the Lexingtonians, because that's what it's all about. So I really want to thank you all for being here. And I want to open up for questions if anybody has any, whether it's for Nym or the production, for anybody else. If anybody has any questions.
I just want to say thanks for seeing us and our project.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you for seeing us and our project and for honoring the project.
Really?
I got in Stockholm 2 years ago. You were maybe the first place I went without a mask. It was that long ago. And we sat there and we asked questions, and I thought, well, she's considered she's really good job.
That was super interesting. I got thinking about today, and this is something you and I talked about, and Stephanie, who's our marketing person, we're talking about how films are being made today, especially in high school, and it would be such an amazing future program of collaboration to talk about this project with projects going on in high school, and the difference between editing, filming, and all the production together. I think it's such a great learning experience, but it's telling how maybe those kids didn't know about your project, but how they're still also making that impact.
They're doing it.
They are. They're doing it in all forms. I think it's amazing. So yeah, I was really thrilled. Like I said, I just thought, look at all these kids doing this, and then not only that, you guys shut down the main road to film, and having all the time. So people in town also saw what you guys were doing and were inspired. So thank you so much. And is there any questions or any comments?
I just wanted to play some of the parts that we saw.
Oh, yes, and who played some of the parts?
Well, the main character in the movie is Lefty. It's the Doublecross. Peter was a friend. He's the main guy. Don Niels is the head of A, and Ma Sweeney is with Jan Dakota, who's now in Mexico. Yeah. And then, well, Bill Tent is that crazy. Not it's that. Mark Sillis is that crazy talent anecdote at the end. Mark Sillis, wonderful. What a great character he was. Happens to drop a villain, and then it goes back to his state of the press.
I think he came up from one of the reunions from Florida a couple years ago.
Yeah, he came up here to listen for a live reading. What else should we mention?
Bill and Tom was the hunchback.
Bill and Tom was on the church. He took over the first parish church. Dad was working with Stephen over there.
Who was the pastor? Clark.
Doug Clark was the pastor. Christian Street was the second one. And Bill Ted, the janitor, the custodian.
Is the young guy at Good Morning Stuff?
Oh, that's Dylan Lowe. Yeah, Dylan Lowe.
Yeah.
Right on Stephen Road. Yeah, he did a good job. Well, and also Dave Grayson was the organist. Right.
You talked about fake cemetery where the graves are.
Well,
really-
we
But
shot
I
it.
remember we shot some cemetery.
Yeah, we definitely shot it.
I have another car, built tank, got in my car. Not in the cemetery.
Ah,
But that's not-
but we also, for other shots.
Break on the shelf behind his house, and we really didn't know they were gonna wait.
They were cardboard.
They were poster board or cardboard or something.
But didn't you also film?
Yeah, also.
Yeah, we did.
You can't get close at Shawshank.
But they're having,
There were mice too.
what?
Mice. Oh, the mice in the coffin.
Nice.
Mice.
That's right. Graham Cole was sitting in the coffin, looking quite alive, and now looks dead. And then later when they dig it out, you see this skull out of the mouse. That's right. It's nice.
I think Becky mentioned about filming in Lexington Center. As you might imagine, the teenagers in Lexington in 1967 and the police in Lexington in 1966 weren't necessarily the best of friends. So we had to get special permission. And thankfully we got it. But we were out there at 6:30 in the morning filming that whole scene for Lexington Center.
You had to be there early enough, right? Partly so that we could do it, but also probably so there wouldn't be too many 1967 cars right away. And there are some shots where old cars buzz by the camera. You see in the distance what look very suspiciously like 1965 Chevrolet.
Yeah. Just a little scene question, the last shot of the boats leaving shore, did you shoot that in Gloucester or where?
Yeah, somewhere on Cape Ann, somewhere on Cape Ann. Graham Colbert had a house, his parents had a house on Cape Ann. That's where we edited the movie. Oh, and I wanted to say something about the editing technology. You mentioned how technology has changed. There was one stage in the editing. My parents had bought a little house right next to theirs, between their house and the barn. They bought it because they wanted to make sure it went to the right people. So I don't know what their racing was. And it was empty for part of that summer. And that's where Marcellus was running out all the money. And but in that same room, we had an editing session where we strung clotheslines up like this, and then hung all the shots, 16mm film. You know, some longer shots, some shorter shots, some medium shots from the clotheslines, and then we just take them off the clotheslines and paste them together. So that was our technology. Well, other questions? Another chance, yes.
Sure. So I have a question about the speed that you use. So it has that old timey silent film speed.
Yeah.
Is that intentional or?
Yeah, pixelation. You just press the film out like this once every second. Or some machine that you get the chopping. Yeah, and then it just everything looks very, very fast. Oh, it's fun. Thank you for having us.